Hey everyone, welcome back to Coding Hub's Python Masterclass. This is going to be your day 3 and we will be covering about what are data types, why do we even need data types, right? What are different kinds of data types? And with that, you will be also learning about a small project at the very end that will be a BMI calculator, okay? So there is a lot of code up there and then there is a lot of theoretical part as well because I want all of you to understand the depth of every single concept. Okay, now what are data types? Think about that you are going to a market, right? And now in this market, your mom has told you, or maybe someone in your family has told you to bring 2 buckets, okay? And then they have just told you about the simple information, okay? The information is that there are 2 types of liquid which your family members want to store. One of that liquid is of 30 liters, okay? And one of the liquid is basically of 2 liters. Done? Now let's suppose you went to the market and you see this in the supermarket that there is only 40 liters of buckets available. Will you buy 240 liters of bucket? You might or you might not, but yes, if I am going to buy it for the 30 liter, it might not be that huge of a wastage in the memory. But if I am doing, for the 2 liters of liquid, let's suppose I have a 2 liter of liquid and I'm buying a 40 liters of bucket, right, to store that, it will be a huge amount of wastage, right? Because there's a lot of space that will be wasted. Similarly, every single data type, whether it is a number or it is a name or maybe it can be anything, right? They have different requirement of amount of space which they need, okay? So that's the reason we have different kinds of data type and each data type has a specific space which it takes in the memory, right? So whether we talk about integer or float, which we will be covering right now. So integer is something which takes lesser amount of space compared to a float. So it will be evident that we use integer whenever we want less amount of space, right? Or that particular data type category which we will be learning about, okay? So let's move forward. Now the next thing which we have to learn about is why data types matter, right? The very first thing which I was telling you about is the storage and operation. It is very much important that we are only using those data types which are required. We are picking data types with, with keeping one thing in mind that we have to stop the wastage of the memory, right? So very important. Next one is correct calculation. Let's suppose you take a string. String is kind of like a word, right? And you take an integer, that's kind of a number, right? Now, what will happen if you will try to add both of them? You cannot add both of them because they are of different types, okay? So here comes the type conversion which we learned on the previous day, okay? Done. So very much important that you are always choosing similar type of data, and with that you are also focusing that you are using the correct data while you're doing some kind of operation up there, okay? Next one is avoiding runtime errors. Very important. Ensure that you are basically doing operations with the correct data, right, and not with the invalid data, right? So you cannot do operation with a string and a number. That's not possible, right? So ensure that if you're choosing strings, you're choosing both the data types to be string, right? If you're choosing number, both of them are number, right? So very important. Next one is organizing the code, right? Definitely we want everything to be organized, well maintained, right? We don't want everything to be creepy up there, right? So we will ensure that whatever data type we are choosing according to the rules which we will be learning later on, okay? Done. Let's move forward, everyone. Now the next thing is checking the data types, right? So there is a specific function, inbuilt function, which is provided by Python to check the data type, that is type, okay, which we will be seeing when we will be doing the code. So up here you can see I'm just printing type, and then in that type I have kept Alex in the double quotation, right? And it is giving you output of string, right? Because Alex is a string, it's a word, right? So a word or sentence, all of them are known as strings in Python. Okay, let's move forward. Okay, now these are the common Python data types which you will be using in your day-to-day life, right? The first thing is string, then integer, float, and boolean. Strings are used to store, whether you want to store a character or you want to store maybe, like a sentence or a word. So in all of these cases, you will be using string, right? So you might, see a platform accessing your email or password. They use string for that, right? Integers, these are basically whole numbers that doesn't have any decimal point with them, like 10, 20, 30, 1, 2, 3, right? 1001. So all of these numbers which doesn't have any decimal points, okay? Float, numbers with decimal point, like 1.2, 2.3, 5.6. All of these numbers are basically float. And then finally we have boolean. Boolean always store true or false. Okay, so you will be learning about Boolean has a very important thing in the coding world. When we will be learning about conditional operator, it will become more evident for you to understand why we are using Boolean right now. Okay, now these are the examples. How do you assign this kinds of variables? So you can see how we are assigning string. We have kept the string in double quotation, right? So you can keep a string in double quotation or single quotation in Python. Then you can see for the integer, I have just mentioned age to be 25. So like this, height I have also mentioned, and it is a floating point because it is in decimal point, right? And Boolean you can see is coder, and I have mentioned true, right? So this is how we basically do simple assignments of the different data types. Okay, now these are the dynamic typing in Python. Always remember this, we don't have to mention which data type we want to use. Okay, Python has dynamic typing. Okay, so it is very much like modern kind of language. It understands your data, and according to the data it will be able to basically assign the correct data type to your data. Okay, done. So Python can decide which variable will have which data type, okay, during the runtime. Now it also ensures that we are not choosing a incorrect data type, because Python has that access. So he is going to do your task, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so in this case we have to write less code because Python is doing half of the work, right? And ensure very important that you're checking for the bugs. Okay, now these are the practical tips. Always ensure you're choosing the correct type of data type. To confirm the data type, you can also use type function to check it, right? Now convert the type explicitly if you think so that you want to use a different data type, right? It is very much important. Ensure that your codes are consistent, right? You're keeping everything consistent. If you're using two numbers, use two numbers. Don't keep one of them to be a string, right? And read the error messages carefully to you so you can understand more about data types and how data types works in Python. Okay, and these are the key takeaways of this lesson which we just did, right? That is understanding the basics. What are data types? Then we understood about the type function. We learned about few simple examples. How do we assign variables? And now we will be also learning a little bit more when we will be doing the code, right? And you also understood about the type conversion. Okay, so what we are going to do now, we will be moving forward to the coding part. Okay, so get ready, open up your VS Code, and let's write some code up there. Okay, now let's move up with the code, right? We have done this on the day 2, if you remember, right? We understood about the formatted string, how do we basically print variables. We understood about what are variables, what are the rules of variables, right? And now we will move up with the day 3. Now what you have to do, you have to click on this arrow that is pointing toward the down hand side. And then you have to click on this thing to create a new folder. The folder name will be day 3. Press enter. Expand this day 3 folder. Create a new file. Name it as main.py. So it's a Python file, right? Okay, great. Now I will close the previous day files. I will increase the size of it. Okay, so we will be learning about how do we assign the commonly used data types directly up here in the code, right? So the very first thing will be name. So that will be coding hub. Now I told you about that names are nothing but they are strings, right? They are strings. Okay, few more things. We have also integers. Integers are like age, right? So coding hub is now 1 year old when I'm recording this video. Okay, we have few more things, right? That are booleans, right? So we can just say coding channel. So I will just say true, it is a coding channel and it's a boolean. Okay, then we also have floating point. So floating point might be something like I can keep any value. I can just say factor, and I can just say 1.25. Okay, and this is basically a float. Now you remember we used the type function to understand about the data types. Let's do that. So we can just say print, tell me the type of name. Okay, then I will just say tell me the type of age. Okay, and then I will tell, okay, tell me the type of the coding channel variable. Okay, and then I will also tell Python to tell me the type of the factor. Okay, now we have to save the code. You already know how to do that. Okay, hold your control key, press S, or you can do command S, right? Click on this run button. There you go. So the class of this first one, basically the data type of this first one is a string, str, that string, right? This one is an integer, which I just told you about, right? Then coding channel, that's basically a boolean. So it's bool, right? And then the last one is a float, right? So these are the commonly used data types in Python. Okay, now let's move forward. Let's try to understand why typecasting or type conversion is very much important, right? And why it can give you some errors. Okay, let's suppose I basically take a number 1, okay, and I'm going to consider it to be in double quotation, and I just say that it's 10. Simple. I am going to take number 2 and I'm also keeping it in double quotation. Now, as soon as I keep them in double quotation, they are not numbers, but they are strings. So strings are nothing but simple words, right? Now, if I try to add both of them, what do you think so? What we will get? 12? No, we will get 102. Okay. The reason is both of them are words. So you're adding two words. It's like adding your full name, it's like adding your first name with your last name. Okay. So that's something which we don't want, right? Now, how do we fix this? So you can say, hey, number 1, I want you to be converted to an integer. This is how we do typecasting. We are converting the type of this number 1 to an integer, and we are reassigning this integer to the number 1. So the number 1 will be now updated with this new integer number 1. Okay. Now this 10 will be converted to an integer, right? Similarly, we have to do for number 2, and we can just say number 2, and then we can just print number 1 plus number 2, right? Now, if I do this, what will happen? See, it's giving me 12. But while I was doing it when it was a string, it's still giving me 102. Okay. So ensure that you are using the correct data type, right? There was one more thing which I told you about, if you remember, right? That if I have basically maybe a name, right? Name is maybe coding hub, right? And I am keeping a age, that's basically an integer. Can we add both of them? What do you think so? Can we add name and age together? So they are of different data types? No, we cannot do that. Why? Because they are of different data type. Okay. So always ensure you're using the correct data type. If you want to add this age to this name, convert it to a string. Okay. So once you convert this to a string, what will happen? Now name is also a string, and this age also turns to a string. Now, if we run this, what will happen? We will get this coding hub 1. Okay. So always ensure you're using the correct data type whenever you are doing some operation on them. Okay. Now, what we have to do, let's comment this entire thing. You already know how to do that. We select everything up. We hold the control key and we press the backslash, and the entire thing will be turned to a comment, and it's not going to execute anymore. Okay. Now, the final thing, right, which I told you about, we will be creating a BMI calculator. Okay. So for a BMI calculator, we need a weight. Now, what do you think? So what will be a weight? Will be a integer or will it be a float? Float, right? So we will just say float input, and I will just tell that enter your weight in kg. Okay. I will need the height in meters. So I will just say height float input, enter your height in meters. And as soon as I do that, I will get the weight and the height, right? I can calculate the BMI. For the BMI, the formula is very simple. We divide the weight with height square, right? So to do the square, we can just say height multiplied by height. Simple. Once that is done, what will happen now? I can print the BMI. So I can just say your BMI is nothing but how much? It will be BMI. Okay, so like this, we can just print this. So it will be BMI, not BGMI. Okay, let's run this now. So it's asking me, asking me for the weight. I can just assign that, hey, 75 is the weight, and meters, I can just say 1.75 meters. And it's giving me your BMI is around 24.48. Yeah, like it's very huge, right? Now, if it is very huge, how will you reduce it, right? How do we reduce it to maybe a particular certain type, right? So there is more to this. Okay, so for that we can simply use the f string, and we can remove this. We can go up here and we can just say BMI should be 0.2f. So what does that mean? That means that we want it to be only till 2 floating points. So it will be only till 2 digits after that point. Okay, so earlier it was 24.4897, very huge number, right? We only want 24.48, right? So it will basically do a simple roundup. Let's see. Again, let's enter the same value, 75 and 1.75, and there you go. It's 24.49. Okay, simple. So it will never round off. Always remember this. It's going to just round off till the second value. That is what is going to happen, right? But not at a huge extent. Okay. So there you go. We have covered the day 3. You learned about different kinds of data types in Python. We also covered what is type function and how do we actually check the type of a data type. We also understood about the importance of using typecasting and why we should be using always a relevant data type. You also created a simple BMI calculator by the end. Now what next? So tomorrow we will be learning about different types of conditional operators. Okay, you will be learning about mathematical operators. You will learn about the conditional operators. There are some binary operators as well. It's going to be very, very, very much exciting, and the things are going to open up more and more from here, right? So what you have to do now? Sit, relax, practice, check the video one more time so you can understand it properly, and that's it. Bye bye. Take care. Have a good day, and we'll be meeting you again on the next video. Bye.